All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go on to the next step today. Is going to be taking the comic book drawing that we've created, and we're going to learn how to start painting it. All right, so we're going to have to go to Photopea.com. The link, I believe, should be in one of our projects. You should know it already, but it's Photopea.com. As you save your work, remember you're always saving it as a PSD. Save as PSD. So when you come back to Photopea, remember, it will not automatically open up on your device. You're going to have to go to the actual web page and then click Open from Computer. And then you're going to have to find your project from the day before. I've changed the name of mine so I know where to find it really quickly, but it should be in your Downloads window. When you click Open, you should see it right over here. On my left-hand side are my tools, my toolbar. My right-hand side, I have my Layers window. You should see that. If you don't, make sure you click on that tab so you see it. You'll know the Layers window because there should be a small thumbnail of your drawing called the background layer. All right. And then up top, we're going to have over here our top menu, File, Edit, Image, Layer. That's our top menu where we can find different options. Underneath that top menu, there is the layer options. So I'm sorry, tool options. So when you click on a tool, any particular tool that you click on, it will pop up here with its options as well. So the top menu, tool options, toolbar, layer window, and our project. I'm going to try to use shortcuts when I can because it is a complicated program and I don't want to kind of spend a ton of time doing the same thing over and over again. So right now what I'm doing is I'm holding down the Control key, and then I'm just tapping the plus sign on my keyboard or the minus. And you'll find that on the top row of your keys, which are right next to backspace or delete, whichever it says on your particular computer. But Control and minus will zoom out, and Control and plus will zoom in. And if you really want to go quickly from zoomed in to the regular view, Control and the number 0 will just make it full screen. And I like to zoom in, especially when I'm painting on an area that I'm working on. Now, I don't want to paint on top of this picture. I want to use something called a layer. Layers are literally what it sounds like. When I create a new layer, I'm creating like a transparency over my drawing. So to do that, I'm going to go to my Layers window. You see it says background over here. What I want to do is I want to save my background so I don't ever mess with it. I'm just going to click this, what looks like a padlock. When you mouse over it, it says all, but it looks like it's an old padlock that you would put on your, let's say, gym locker. When I click that, you'll see that lock pops over here, and my background will remain locked and I won't screw it up. I don't like painting directly on the background because, quite frankly, I like to be able to edit and change my background as necessary and be able to keep all my painting layers separate, and you'll see why later on. In the bottom end of this layer window, you'll see there are a couple different icons. One of them looks like a waste paper basket. It is the delete layer, and that's all the way in the corner. It is like a little garbage can. Next to it is a little, like it's almost a square with a tiny corner folded up. It's supposed to look like a piece of paper with a corner folded. Next to it looks like a manila folder. But this one right here is called New Layer. It's the second one over from the corner. And when I click it, a new layer is going to pop up on my Layers window. By default, it's called Layer 1. And if you look at the thumbnail, it's a checkerboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on background. That eyeball that I just clicked just makes the background invisible for a second. So when I click on that, you can see the layer that I can see. The only layer I can see is Layer 1. And Layer 1 is a checkerboard. That checkerboard is just information to let you know it's invisible. There's nothing there. Checkerboard means it's clear. All right? So just imagine right now what I did is I took a clear piece of plastic and put it over my background. When you click on this layer, you can see that layer gets highlighted. I'm clicked on the background. And click back on my Layer 1. You want to make sure whatever layer you're working on, whatever layer you're painting on, in this case, this is the only layer we have, so it's going to be this one, should be highlighted. Now, on that layer, you see the word layer 1. If you click directly on the word, I'm just going to double click on the word layer 1, not in the gray area, not on the icon here, the thumbnail, right on the word layer 1, you'll see it's highlighted and you can change it. I'm going to start painting the skin. You don't have to paint the skin first. You could paint whatever you want, but I would give it a more descriptive name. You could call it skin, you could call it toga, you could call it shield, you could call it red, you could call it orange. My feeling is give it a real name, because when we're done, we're going to have a lot of different layers. It's easier to know which is which by label instead of just remembering layer 1 is this, layer 2 is this, layer 3 is this. So I'm going to rename mine skin. I'm going to click off of that to kind of make it official. So now I'm going to be painting on this layer called skin. First thing I want to do is I want to learn about the tool brush. All right, if I go to my toolbar, I'm going to find the brush, and the brush is going to be maybe about halfway down. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th tool down. Now, when you mouse over it, it tells you what it is. In this case, it's the brush tool. What you see next to it is 2 parentheses and the letter B. All right, the letter B by itself is the shortcut to get to the brush tool, but there are many different brush tools here. If you click and hold, and you'll see there's a little triangle in this corner, that means that there are more tool options underneath. You see the brush tool, the pencil tool, color replacement tool, clone tool, eraser tool, background eraser tool, a lot of different options here. We want the regular old brush tool that looks exactly like the one you see here. When I take the brush tool, I want to move on to my actual picture, and you'll notice on your cursor there's a little bit of a circle. If you don't see a circle and you see a plus sign instead, that means your caps lock key is hit. So just make sure caps lock is off. That little circle is your actual brush. If you click and drag, you're going to see that brush starts making paint. That color paint is what's ever in your color picker. Now it happens to be it's going to remember the last color I picked, but for you, a lot of you, you're going to be in the default color, which is going to be white. And how you're going to see that? When you go down to your toolbar, in the bottom left-hand side, you're going to see 2 boxes. Those 2 boxes over there, one of them is either going to be white and the other one's going to be black. It may not be in the same order as you see mine, but the top one is your color picker. Now, if you click on that top box, color picker is going to pop up. You're going to see a rainbow bar right over here. You're going to see it's a window that you can move around, and I like to move it out of the way so I can see my work. You're going to see some other color options over here. And up top, you're going to just see whatever color is currently in your sort of paintbrush. So in my case, it's white. If I click on different areas inside this square, and I click on them, you can see it changes the color. This is what I'm currently clicked on. This was the old color. If I want to change that completely, I can take the slider over here on the rainbow and just click and drag to a different area. See, I've clicked and created a different color. When I have the exact right color I want, I'll hit OK. And then that color should appear in that top box. If I've selected my brush tool and I click and drag, you'll all of a sudden see that I've created a different color and I'm just clicking and dragging and painting. Now, what I want to do is, I think I like that color purple, but I want to try to make it cover more area. So how do I change the brush? I go up top to the brush options, which is underneath my top menu. You can see another little logo of the brush, and next to it, most likely, is going to be a little circle and a triangle. Underneath that circle, there'll be a number. It might be 15, it might be something different, but there'll be a circle and a triangle nonetheless. I click on the triangle, you're going to see the brush option sort of toolbox opens up. In there, there's size and hardness. Right now, I'm going to make the size larger. And what you might be noticing on my screen is the circle that was my brush is actually getting bigger and bigger. I bring it out here to 1,000 pixels, you can see how big that brush is. Okay? If I go out over here, change that to like 500 or 159 for that matter, you can see it's a much smaller brush. You can click and drag. There's another option underneath it called hardness. Right now, we don't want to mess with this. We're going to leave the hardness at 100%. There's also some other tool brush like ends, like custom ends. We're not going to mess with this right now. The only thing that's important for us to know right now is the size. I'll go back over here. Now, you can see what I've done on this layer because you can see it in the thumbnail down here. Obviously, I've made a lot of, I guess, sort of garbage on my drawing that I don't need. I could erase this, or I could also undo it. To undo something, you want to hold down the Control key and then tap the letter Z. If you've worked in almost any other program, you're going to notice that Control Z kind of undoes things universally. If you were watching as I was undoing things, my history section kind of went back in time. The only issue about using the undo is that you don't necessarily have in a given day unlimited undos. The memory of your device is going to get involved. But if you make one quick little mistake like this and you want to undo it, Control and then the letter Z will undo it. We now know how to undo things. We know how to create a new layer. We know how to adjust the size of our brush. And we also know how to adjust the color. I'm going to go back and try to find a skin tone for my character. And she's going to be, I mean, my daughter is actually pretty, she's pretty white. So I'm going to try to find just a really, really light skin tone, which is going to be in the sort of orange family. And then I'm just going to go up into the corners. I'm going to click that and I'm going to click OK. And you can see that color is in my toolbox. I'm actually going to give her a little bit of a suntan so you guys can see it a little easier at home. I'm going to make her just a little bit darker, just for my demonstration. What's important to know about creating a layer and labeling it, if you color different things on different layers, you could change the color very easily later on. So even if I don't like the skin color that I picked today now, if I do all the skin on one layer here, I can come back tomorrow and change all of it all at once. Now what I want to do is I want to start painting in my daughter's skin color. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to start working on the face. What you'll notice though is when I paint, I'm basically covering up my drawing, which is something I don't want to do. Now you'll know, and you already can see the way I've worked, that layer, that skin layer, if I make it disappear, it's there and it's not really affecting my background. But I want to make this so I can see through it. To see through it, I'm going to go from the option that says normal right under the word layer. I'm going to click from normal and I'm going to switch it to multiply. When I click multiply, you'll notice that now when I'm painting, I'm still adding that color, but that color is now see-through. If I made my background disappear, you would see there's all the paint that I'm currently adding. But since I've changed that layer's properties to make it multiply, you can now see through what I'm doing, which is exactly what I want. Now with that, I can go paint away. If I'm working on a very small, hard to reach area, I can go to my tool options here and change the size of the brush so I can sneak in and paint some of those little details. If I make a mistake, like I go outside of the lines, I can just hit Control and Z and undo that. But let's just say I'm painting an area and I made a mistake, then I went on to do a bunch of other stuff, and then I realized, you know what, I want to go back and just erase that one part. We're going to switch to a new tool, which is, if you haven't guessed, going to be the eraser. If you didn't notice, the eraser was also hiding right by my brush tool. So if I click on the brush tool and hold, I can go down to the eraser tool. When I switch to the eraser tool, you may notice it looks almost the same because the eraser is also a brush. You can make it bigger or smaller here as necessary. In this case, I'm going to keep it small, and I'm going to go in and just erase and clean up that part that I added that I didn't like. So that's one of the ways you can go back in there. Let's just say I didn't like over here. I can always come back in with my eraser and erase in there. I realize that that was a mistake. I'll undo it, or what I'll do is I'll simply go back to my brush tool with my color and just fill all that in. So by using the brush tool, adjusting the size, you can, and color obviously, you can go in and you can start painting your character. I would do my best to try to keep it right in or on the lines, and I would use a smaller brush just for the tight detail areas. If you happen to screw up, like I painted a little bit into her eye, switch back to your eraser tool, adjust the size of the eraser if you have to, and get in and clean it up. To get into those hard to reach places, again, you may have to use a smaller brush, which you can always adjust up over here. But we're going to start to make our one color, our first color, whatever it is that you want to paint on your project. Now, you could start with the skin, you could start with the hair, you could start with whatever. But whatever you start with, I would make a layer just for that. So in this case, mine right now would be the skin, and I'm going to color in all of my skin. When I'm done with that skin, and I want to color a different area, and just for those of you who are going to do this today, if something's going to be the same color, I would do like all of it all at once. So not only would I finish her face, I would also do her arms and legs, which are also going to be bare. That way I can have all the skin color be consistent. I can also paint the arm and do all the rest of that like that. I'm going to kind of breeze through this. I'm not going to quite finish this. And I'm going to show you how to go to another color. For another color, what I would recommend you do is I wouldn't paint the same color on this layer. I would go ahead and go back to my layer window, create a new layer, and on this one, I'm gonna make this gold. Okay. Helmet, I can label it whatever I want. Okay. I'm going to make this my gold layer. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to try to look for a color that I like as gold. I think I like that. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, Control Plus. My brush is a little bit big. Make it a little bit smaller. And then I'll start painting. Now, once again, when you create a new layer, it doesn't automatically switch it to multiply. So if you don't see through your actual paintbrush, go to that new layer you created, say normal, switch it to multiply. And then you should be able to work right through that as well. There are a lot more tricks I'm going to show you. And if you noticed me painting the other day, I'm also going to show you how to do like some shading as well. But baby steps at first. Let's first understand how to use the paintbrush, how to adjust the size of the paintbrush, how to adjust the color. Let's make a couple layers and start painting some of this, and then we can go back and start working on some of the other areas. And what I would recommend again is if you're working in some smaller spots, go get your brush and make it smaller. Now, in my painting right over here, I made a little bit of a mistake and I painted over some spots that I wanted to be skin color. Now, if I did this all on one layer, I just have that mark and I'd have to come back with my skin color and fix it. But since this is on its own separate layer, you can see that by when I click on that, I can always switch back to my eraser tool and clean that up. That's one of the reasons I want you to keep different colors on different layers. I think it's easier for fixing. One of the other reasons that I want to do that is because I also will show you later on how to mess around with the colors themselves. So let's just say tomorrow I decide that I don't want my helmet to be gold anymore. I want it to be a different color. I can change that. But if I had all of this on one layer, it would change the skin and the helmet. So those are things to keep in mind why I'm telling you to create a new layer. You should take your time and try to be as neat as possible. There are a lot of tools in Photopea, but I would recommend just start with the ones I'm showing you. I will ultimately learn and teach you a lot of different things that you could do in this program, but one thing at a time. Let's master one tool at a time, and then we'll move on to the next one. This video will be uploaded, and you can use it step by step to get started, but what I would tell you to do is just try to make one layer at first and color one thing at a time. Whenever you're done for the day, even if you're not finished with a part, you want to make sure once again that you go File, Save as a PSD, not just save as a PSD. It will copy yet another version, a newer version of your thing. And again, you're going to find that new version in your downloads window. So ultimately, when you're working on this, you're going to have a new copy of this saved every day. Just in case you should lose one or you didn't save it correctly, you shouldn't lose weeks worth of work. And because we don't have this program on our actual device, it's just a web page, this is the only way we can really do it properly. So make sure that you save it at the end of every day. And if you do end up coloring everything, I will be putting a new assignment out where you'll take a screenshot of your colored work with your layers and submit.